Seeing that his daughter-in-law was naive, and that his two sons worked far away, the father-in-law came up with a sinister plan to have a man from the same village abuse his daughter-in-law for 18 months. The father-in-law even took on the role of guarding the gate or wandering around the yard to prevent others from coming close and discovering the abuse. In return, the man would give the father-in-law various household items such as a TV, refrigerator, washing machine, and even an electric bicycle for transportation. The case only came to light when the daughter-in-law gave birth to a baby girl, and the DNA didn't match her husband's. The most shocking thing is the sentence given to these two monsters in human disguise, which has outraged many people. Right now, let's explore this heartbreaking story together. But first, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications whenever a new video is uploaded. This is a real case that happened in a rural village in Henan Province, China. At 7:41 p.m. on January 26, 2024, after finishing dinner, Sun Yong's phone screen suddenly lit up, catching his attention. When he opened the phone, he saw a message from Li Shuang, the younger sister of Li Dao, his brother-in-law, asking if he was busy and if they could talk for a bit. A simple question, yet it carried a lot of worry, making Sun Yong feel uneasy. Li Shuang is the younger sister of Li Dao, Sun Yong's brother-in-law. Since Sun Yong's intellectually disabled sister Sun Chunling married Li Dao, Li Shuang and Sun Yong rarely talked unless something important happened. Therefore, when he received a message from Li Shuang, Sun Yong knew something had happened to his sister, so he immediately called to find out what was going on. When he heard Li Shuang's account, Sun Yong couldn't believe his ears. It turned out his sister had given birth to a baby girl at home not long ago. This was extremely surprising news, but what worried Sun Yong even more was Li Shuang saying that they had to do a DNA test for the child before they could register her in the household. The reason was that the baby was not born in a hospital, so establishing paternity through a DNA test was mandatory, especially since both parents were intellectually disabled. Li Dao's family, unaware of the necessary procedures to conduct a DNA test, had called Sun Yong for help. When Sun Yong asked further, he learned that none of the in-laws had known that Sun Chunling was pregnant. The main reason was that winter in the mountainous areas of Henan is very cold, and everyone wears thick clothes, making it more difficult than ever to notice if someone is pregnant. Sun Yong's heart was heavy with thoughts about his responsibility toward his sister and his newborn niece, while the relationships between family members were gradually becoming more complicated. Rewinding back to the past, Sun Chunling was born in the poor mountainous village of Gongyi, where life for the residents was still very difficult. From the age of 5, her parents noticed that Sun Chunling was different from other children. Seeing that their daughter's intellectual development was slow, that she struggled with speech and couldn't take care of herself, Sun Chunling's parents were very worried. In a society where the value of sons is prioritized, having a daughter with intellectual disabilities like her undoubtedly became a heavy burden for the family. The villagers gradually grew accustomed to Sun Chunling's presence as someone with intellectual disabilities. Sun Chunling was like an ancient tree in the village, quietly growing up, unnoticed by those around her. On weekdays, Sun Chunling often wandered around the village, sometimes helping neighbors with simple tasks like carrying water or sweeping in exchange for a little food for her meals. Simple-minded and unclear in her speech, Sun Chunling would often stand by the roadside in a daze, watching the villagers pass by as if she were an observer in her own life. In order to have a son to carry on the family line, Sun Chunling's parents decided to have a second child. Fortunately, they had a boy named Sun Yong. Thankfully, Sun Yong did not have intellectual disabilities like his sister, and he became the family's pride. Understanding that his sister was like a child, Sun Yong loved and cared for Sun Chunling as attentively as he could. Like many rural families, Sun Chunling's parents also hoped that their intellectually disabled daughter would marry one day, so there would be a man to look after her future. When Sun Chunling was 24, The family was approached by a matchmaker who introduced her to Li Dao, a man 2 years older than her. Li Dao lived about 20 kilometers from Sun Chunling's home. Like Sun Chunling, Li Dao also had intellectual disabilities due to an illness in childhood. However, Li Dao knew some basic skills like cooking, doing laundry, and could communicate in simple terms. After they got married, they slept in separate beds and rarely interacted with each other. Li Dao often went away for work, only returning home a few times a year. Most of the time, Li Dao lived at his sister Li Shiying's house, to make it easier for him to accompany her to work in the city since he couldn't drive. Sun Chunling's brother-in-law, Li Shun, would wake up at 4:30 a.m. every day to go to work and return late at night. Li Shun's life seemed constantly busy, and occasionally he would bring home some tofu skin or meat to cook for the family as a way of showing care for those around him. Sun Chunling's father-in-law, Mr. Li Mumu, was a high-energy man who would often wake up early to exercise along the village road. He would return home around 8 or 9 a.m. after finishing his physical exercises. After that, Mr. Li Mumu would prepare his own meal, rarely cooking for his daughter-in-law. Under the supervision of family members, Li Dao and Sun Chunling had very few opportunities to interact with each other. Once, on a dreary morning, Li Dao cooked a fragrant pot of porridge and brought it inside for Sun Chunling. Although he loved his wife deeply, Li Dao didn't know how to express his affection. Every night before bed, he would relax by watching short entertainment videos. Before falling asleep, he would usually call Sun Chunling to turn off the lights. Hearing her husband's request, Sun Chunling would hurriedly get up and go to turn off the lights. Life between Li Dao and Sun Chunling passed quietly, and the couple had a son named Li Jiashu. However, everything changed on January 19, 2024, when a strong, cold front arrived, bringing 4 days of continuous snow in Gangyi and dropping temperatures to 3 degrees Celsius. Near midnight, Sun Chunling's son, Li Jiashu, was awakened by a sudden scream. Li Jiashu quickly got up, stepped out of his room, and saw his father, Li Dao, pacing anxiously on the snow-covered ground in the yard, his face showing clear confusion. Looking into the house, Li Jiashu was stunned by the scene before him, a large blood stain on the floor. His mother, Sun Chunling, was crouched on the ground, while his uncle, Li Shun, and his 73-year-old grandfather, Li Mumu, rushed in from the next room. Taking in the situation, they quickly realized that Sun Chunling had just given birth to a baby girl right on the floor. Mr. Li Mumu hastily used scissors to cut the umbilical cord, wrapped the baby in a coat, and carried her to the kitchen, where there was a fire burning to keep her warm. Li Shun immediately called his sister, Li Shiying, to inform her of what had happened, explaining that none of the family members knew Sun Chunling was pregnant because she often wore very thick clothing in the cold winter. When they went to register the baby girl's household registration, the local office staff required a paternity test, as the newborn had not been born in a hospital. Due to the complicated nature of the situation, Li Shiying then called Sun Yong to ask for his help in arranging a DNA test for the child. After receiving the call from Li Shiying, Sun Yong quickly organized a paternity test for the child and Li Dao. However, the DNA test results left both families shocked, as Li Dao, Sun Chunling's husband, was not the biological father of the baby girl. So who was the child's biological father? Someone with intellectual disabilities like Sun Chunling could hardly have had an affair. The news quickly spread throughout this remote mountain village. Sun Yong suspected that his sister might have been sexually assaulted and decided to report the incident to the police on February 8. News quickly spread throughout the remote mountain village. Who would have thought that a simple-minded woman like Sun Chunling would have to endure such misfortune? Some people even whispered about the perpetrator, saying it was cruel to do such a thing to someone with intellectual disabilities. Others made mocking remarks, doubting that someone as naive as Sun Chunling could attract any man in the village. Sun Chunling's parents couldn't contain their pain and despair, Tears rolled down their cheeks as they learned that their daughter might have been sexually assaulted. They had lived more than 70 years, but now faced an unimaginable tragedy. Despite their anguish, the elderly couple continued to care for their 44-year-old intellectually disabled daughter and their newborn grandchild. Due to her intellectual disability, Sun Chunling simply smiled vacantly, completely unaware of what was happening around her. She would gaze at her parents and family members with wide eyes, occasionally offering a silly smile, as if she were in some strange dream. In fact, Sun Chunling had previously experienced a terrible incident in April 2022, when she was nearly raped. Just 6 months later, the perpetrator was prosecuted and received a 2-year sentence for attempted rape. Because of this, many villagers suspected that Sun Chunling might have become the target of another predator. The investigation became even more difficult as there were no surveillance cameras in the house, leaving the police without clear evidence to identify the assailant. Over the following month, the police investigated more than 200 men in the village. Authorities required all men over the age of 40 to come to the local office to provide blood samples. On March 23, Sun Chunling's father-in-law, Lee Mumu, was unexpectedly arrested by the police in connection with the sexual assault of his daughter-in-law. Shortly afterward, Li Tao's younger brother, Li Shun, was also summoned to identify a second suspect. This suspect was none other than Ding Muqing, a 58-year-old man. According to Li Shun, over the past 2 years, his father had been very close to Ding Muqing, a scrap collector who was married. Ding Muqing was described as having a round face, standing around 1.6 meters tall, and being from a neighboring village. Neighbors further reported that Li Mumu rarely interacted with other villagers, but often kept in touch with Ding Muqing. They would often meet by the roadside, sometimes talking for so long that they even skipped drinking sessions, which made the neighbors suspicious. However, what Li Mumu and Ding Muqing confessed left people even more outraged when they learned of the harsh reality faced by Sun Chunling. From February 2022 to October 2023, Li Mumu had sex with Sun Chunling many times while her 2 sons were away. From February 2022 to July 2023, Li Mumu also masterminded Ding Muqing's sexual intercourse with Sun Chunling many times at his private residence and caused her to become pregnant, giving birth to a baby girl on January 19, 2024. The Forensic Identification Department of the Gongji City Police confirmed that Ding Muqing was indeed the biological father of the baby girl. According to Ding Muqing's testimony, he had regularly given Li Mumu various household items in exchange for the opportunity to commit depraved acts with Li's daughter-in-law. These items included an old refrigerator, a TV, a tricycle, and various other household goods that Ding Muqing hoped would strengthen their relationship. One morning in February 2022, after Li Mumu's 2 sons had left for work early, Ding Muqing came to Li Mumu's house under the pretense of collecting scrap, as he usually did. However, Mr. Li Mumu suddenly made a request for Ding Muqing to repay the debt by having sex with his daughter-in-law, Sun Chunling. These acts continued over a year and a half, lasting until July 2023. During this period, Ding Muqing regularly visited Li Mumu's house every 2 weeks, or approximately every 20 days. These visits usually took place in the mornings when Li Mumu's sons were not at home, and the final recorded count was over 20 visits. Each time Ding Muqing arrived, Li Mumu would actively summon Chunling to the south room, where they would carry out these depraved acts. Meanwhile, Li Mumu would stand guard at the door or walk around the yard to prevent outsiders from approaching, ensuring that everything went smoothly and remained undiscovered. To maintain this arrangement, Ding Muqing continued to provide Li Mumu with hundreds of kilograms of wheat, a microwave, and various other household items. Additionally, during his visits to collect scrap, Ding Muqing would give a small amount of money to satisfy Li Mumu and sustain the arrangement. As for Li Mumu, he admitted that the gifts from Ding Muxing were in exchange for allowing him to have relations with his daughter-in-law. In March 2022, he received a TV, a refrigerator, and a washing machine from Ding Muxing. By 2023, the list of gifts had grown to include 3 microwaves, a red electric tricycle, and a large bag of flour. Li Mumu's son, Li Shun, recalled that back when his mother was still alive, his father owned an old electric car. However, after that car broke down, in 2017, Li Mumu borrowed 3,000 yuan from Li Shun to buy a new one. Unfortunately, the motor of the new car burned out while driving in the rain, forcing him to sell it. In 2019, he acquired another electric bicycle, but after an accident, the family advised him not to go out anymore. However, in the past 2 years, Li Mumu suddenly reappeared with another electric vehicle of unknown origin, raising suspicions from Li Shun. Worried that something was amiss, Li Shun unplugged the vehicle, but strangely, 2 days later, the vehicle disappeared. Finding this odd, Li Shun repeatedly questioned Li Mumu about the origin of the vehicle, but Li could not explain. Due to being busy with work and coming home late, Li Shun didn't pay much attention to the electric vehicle anymore. However, he never imagined that his father would engage in such depraved acts with his sister-in-law in exchange for those items. Crossing hills and gentle slopes, the lonely brick house by the wide field is where Li Mumu's family lives. Sun Chunling and her husband's house was reinforced with 2 stainless steel doors and equipped with 7 security cameras both inside and outside the house after the incident. Villagers referred to Sun Chunling as the foolish woman, a nickname highlighting her noticeable differences. The 44-year-old woman has short hair, a round physique, and faint scars on her arms. When asked by a reporter if she had eaten, Sun Chunling did not respond, only staring vacantly at the reporter, arms crossed, seeming a bit shy and uncomfortable. Before the first attempted rape incident, this house didn't even have a gate. In 2022, after Sun Chunling narrowly escaped a sexual assault, Li Xiuying funded the installation of a stainless steel gate and distributed keys to 4 men in the family for security. At the end of 2023, when Li Shun discovered that a washing machine and induction cooker had been stolen from the house, they decided to spend 130 yuan to install additional surveillance cameras in the yard to prevent further theft. After the incident where Sun Chunling was abused by her father-in-law and exploited by a neighbor in exchange for household items, the police installed additional surveillance cameras. Sun Chunling's brother, Sun Yong, also installed 5 more cameras covering the yard, the house interior, and the main entrance. To ensure his sister's safety during necessary outdoor activities, Sun Yong installed a stainless steel door with a keycard system outside the main entrance. This setup allows Sun Chunling to move safely to the farthest area she can access. In her spare time, Sun Chunling often befriends a stray cat in the grass near her home. She brings the kitten inside and feeds it, creating a small, warm space amid her loneliness. Every time Sun Yong recalls what happened to his unfortunate sister, he feels immense regret. He thinks that if the registration process for Sun Chunling's newborn had gone smoothly, perhaps her in-laws wouldn't have contacted him, and the incident might never have been uncovered and brought to light. Sun Yong admits that both families bear responsibility for this tragic chain of events, including himself. Sometimes in the dead of night, I think about my sister and wonder if she's all right. In the summer, I remembered that her house didn't have air conditioning, so I installed one for her. Most of the time, I'm busy with my own work, so I didn't pay much attention to her, Sun Yong said with sadness and a sense of helplessness. He also admitted his own shortcomings in not visiting his sister regularly and not installing surveillance cameras sooner. This is my fault. I'm doing these things to show everyone in the village that my family isn't easily bullied or looked down upon. In the future, no one will dare to do that to my sister again, Sun Yong asserted. After the case, The local government assisted Sun Chunling's family in registering her daughter's household, obtaining health insurance for her, and continued to provide monitoring and support within their responsibilities. The case was heard at the Gyeonggi People's Court on September 6, 2024, attracting local public attention and media coverage. In this trial, the victim's son, Lee Jiashu, attended alone on behalf of the family. Although Lee Jiashu's presence helped provide important evidence, the trial did not reach a final verdict that day, as certain legal procedures were not yet completed. After a thorough investigation and review of the relevant evidence, on September 30, 2024, the Gyeonggi People's Court issued its final judgment, sentencing both Ding Mu-cheng and Lee Mu-mu to 5 years in prison for rape. In addition to the prison sentence, the court ordered Ding Mu-cheng to bear financial responsibility for the victim. He was required to pay a total of 9,379 yuan to cover postnatal care, nutrition fees, and other economic losses the victim suffered as a result of his actions. This compensation aims to support the victim in recovering and addressing the consequences caused by the crime. The sentencing of the two offenders, Ding Mo-shing and Lee Mu-mu, sparked outrage in the community. Many felt that a 5-year prison sentence was not severe enough to deter others and did not accurately reflect the gravity of the crime of rape. Some women's rights organizations spoke out, urging the authorities to reconsider and increase the penalties to ensure justice is more rigorously upheld. Meanwhile, the community also expressed concern about the prevalence of sexual violence and called on society to raise awareness, support victims, and work together to create a safer environment for everyone.
On a beautiful day in October 2003, fishermen at sea discovered a female body floating on the Atlantic Ocean. When the police arrived, the inspectors were shocked to see that the body was unidentifiable due to being submerged in seawater for too long. In fact, the sight of rock crabs clinging to the pale thighs of the corpse made the investigators nearly vomit. Faced with difficulties in identifying the body, the case, which seemed to have reached a dead end, suddenly received new clues that revealed the truth of the story. The question arises, who went to the trouble of flying out over the Atlantic Ocean to dispose of the body without leaving a trace? Could there be a hidden conspiracy behind it? Don't miss a single moment of this case. The gripping developments are yet to come. Watch the entire video to find out who the culprit is. The case took place in New Jersey, USA. New Jersey is one of the most economically developed states in the US. Not only that, but it is also a popular tourist destination with dreamy beaches, especially Cape May Beach. However, on a beautiful day, a shocking discovery that stunned the entire United States shattered the lively atmosphere of this tourist paradise. On October 8, 2003, as usual, fishermen set sail to go fishing. While steering the boat, one fisherman noticed a strange object floating on the surface of the sea. Upon closer inspection, he was horrified to discover that it was a female body and immediately called the police. Shortly thereafter, the police arrived at the scene to retrieve the body and conduct an autopsy to determine the cause of death. At the crime scene, Inspector James Thistle was shocked to see the condition of the victim. The body bore no signs of identification, as it had been submerged in seawater for too long. Moreover, he nearly vomited at the scene when he saw a rock crab clinging to the inner thigh of the body. From this detail, the New Jersey State Police concluded that the body had sunk to the bottom of the ocean at some point, as rock crabs only live on the ocean floor. Since the unidentified female body appeared in the Atlantic Ocean, the U.S. Coast Guard, USCG, assisted the state police in conducting the autopsy. The autopsy results revealed that the victim had been murdered, as evidenced by a large metal chain wrapped around her ankles and tape wrapped around her feet and hand. The police believe that the perpetrator may not have anticipated that the body would rise to the surface. However, how the killer managed to dispose of the body in this area remains a big question. James Thistle believed that the body was the only clue, so identifying the victim was of utmost importance. However, the police faced many difficulties that could potentially lead the case into a dead end. as the fingerprints on the body were wrinkled and distorted due to being submerged in seawater for an extended period. Undeterred, police enlisted experts to wrap threads around the finger joints, inject a saline solution into the flesh beneath the finger joints, then roll it up, which allowed for the extraction of sufficient fingerprints for identification. Soon after, the unidentified female body was confirmed to be Kimberly Holton, 16 years old, who had been reported missing in Dover, Delaware, about 65 kilometers from Cape May, over a week ago. After collecting crucial evidence, the New Jersey State Police immediately organized an investigative team and sent them to Delaware, where the victim had lived, for a thorough investigation. According to the police investigation, Kimberly Holton, 16 years old, was born on November 4, 1986, in Kent County, USA. As a child, she had to live in difficult circumstances as her biological mother was a drug addict until a child care organization intervened. Later, Kimberly was adopted but continuously had to move from one family to another in search of better living conditions until a couple in Dover, Delaware, Ronald and Lorraine Machette, decided to adopt her. The presence of Ronald and Lorraine provided Kimberly with a stable home, helping her escape from her previous uncertain and challenging life. However, Kimberly's troubles began to emerge and escalate with the arrival of her older sister, Heather. Heather was also the adopted daughter of the Machettes, a few years older than Kimberly. The Machettes hoped that the two adopted daughters would get along and bond as a family. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Kimberly and Heather argued frequently and constantly quarreled. Initially minor disagreements gradually turned into intense arguments, creating a tense and heavy atmosphere in the household. Destiny Andrews, close friend of Kimberly Holton, described her as a caring person who deeply loved others. Andrews believed that if Kimberly were still alive, she would surely pursue a career as a veterinarian or a veterinary technician. Kimberly's love for animals was profound. Andrews also implied that Kimberly had shared with her about the difficulties in her family life, but was very skilled at concealing her pain behind a cheerful and optimistic exterior. That's how she didn't think about everything, Andrews said, highlighting how Kimberly used her lively personality to cope with negative emotion. According to Andrews, Kimberly was not only a good friend, but also a diligent student, always serious about her studies and never missing school. Thus, when Kimberly did not get on the bus one day, Andrews immediately felt worried and knew that something was wrong with her friend. Kimberly Holton's first foster mother, Mrs. Sherry Welsh of Williamstown, New Jersey, also shared that Kimberly's childhood was very difficult. The little girl was frequently starved and did not have toys like other children. These bitter experiences left a profound mark on Kimberly's soul. On the fateful morning of September 30, 2003, 8 days before Kimberly's body was discovered, she did not board the bus to school as usual. After a long day of waiting without her daughter returning, Mrs. Lorraine Machette, Kimberly's foster mother, went to the police station to report her missing daughter. The New Jersey State Police, assigned to investigate after Kimberly's body was found underwater, collaborated with the Delaware State Police, DSP, to learn more about the victim's background and circumstance. Mrs. Lorraine also mentioned that this was not the first time Kimberly had disappeared. She had previously run away, but later returned home on her own. However, this time, Mrs. Lorraine did not see her daughter come back, and her anxiety quickly turned into fear when she realized that something terrible happened. From these clues, the police believed there were many issues within the foster family before Kimberly went missing. Returning to finding evidence related to Kimberly's death, the detectives assigned to the case found no signs of injury that immediately explained her cause of death. However, after a medical examination, they discovered that Kimberly had suffered severe head trauma from a blunt object, likely the result of falling from a significant height. The strongest physical evidence the detectives had was a metal chain used to bind the victim's ankles. Detective Thistle noted, each link of this metal chain had a stamped number which led the detectives to a Lowe's home improvement store not far from Kimberly's home. There, the store manager accessed the computer system to track the chain's information from length and stamped number, discovering that someone purchased the chain just 1 day after Kimberly went missing, along with a padlock and concrete block. timestamp on the receipt helped authorities quickly identify surveillance footage at the checkout, which showed two men. However, due to the video being fuzzy and the items being paid for in cash, identifying these two men became difficult. Faced with this situation, the investigators decided to publicize images of the two suspects in local media, hoping to receive assistance from the public to solve the case. Immediately, they received numerous tip calls, and someone pointed out that one of the two men who visited the store was Robert Brothers. Robert himself also called the hotline to admit that he had been with Jacob Jones when Jones bought the items for weightlifting, but denied involvement in Kimberly's murder. The police found no reason for Brothers to lie, and when they asked him to guess why Jones might hate Kimberly, Robert mentioned a name: Heather, the victim's foster sister. Heather was also Jacob Jones's girlfriend. When summoned to the police station, Heather tearfully admitted that she and Kimberly had indeed argued, but only about trivial matters like using cosmetics without permission or borrowing a pretty dress without asking first. However, Heather denied hating Kimberly to the extent of wanting to kill her, as both were foster sisters. "I swear to God, I don't know what happened to Kim. I don't know if Jacob is involved in this or not. I don't know anything about it. All I know is that I am completely innocent," Heather cried out to the investigators. Jacob Jones is a 20-year-old sophomore at the University of Delaware with an outstanding academic record and no prior criminal history. According to reporter Jeff Brown from the Dover Post, Jacob was enrolled in the aviation program and was a licensed pilot and instructor at Dover Air Force Base, where he was certified to operate aircraft and frequently rented planes for personal flying. In interviews with the police, Jacob admitted to buying chains, locks, and a block of concrete, but claimed it was for weightlifting. However, the police did not believe him, especially since Jacob could not explain where these items were now. Faced with the situation, Jacob did not change his statement and quickly requested a lawyer. Jacob's supervisor told the police that in recent weeks, Jacob had shown many signs of unusual behavior. Specifically, he had not been arriving at work on time or was even absent, and when he was present, he appeared very agitated and angry. Records show that on September 30th, 2003, Jacob flew a Cessna aircraft out of the base at 11:45 p.m. and returned the plane just 2 hours later. From this information, the police inferred that there might have been a second person involved in the case, at least to help Jacob move the body and secure it to the plane before dropping it into the sea. Investigators gathered additional crucial information through the autopsy, determining that the severe head injuries to Kimberly were the result of a fall from a height. This further reinforced the hypothesis that the victim's body had been dropped from the plane, causing the severe injuries that led to a tragic death. The next question is who the accomplice is and what the true motive behind the case was. On October 23, 2003, 10 days after Kimberly's body was discovered, a phone call from Jacob's father shocked the authority. He reported that Jacob had committed suicide with a gun in his bedroom. However, even more shocking was that just minutes before his suicide, Jacob had confessed to his parents that he and a 23-year-old acquaintance, Michael Keyser, had killed Kimberly Holton. According to Inspector Brown, Jacob told his father that Kimberly was causing trouble in the family, especially with his girlfriend, Heather, and he felt that he needed to fix the situation. To execute this brutal plan, Jacob had received help from Michael Keyser, who had worked as a security guard at the local racetrack, alongside Jacob. Although the two only knew each other through work and did not have a close relationship or frequently hang out together, they committed this horrific crime together. Jacob's confession before his suicide helped illuminate the dark aspects of the case, providing the police with crucial leads to continue the investigation and bring the accomplice, Michael Keyser, to justice. With new clues, the police immediately summoned Michael Keyser for questioning. According to Michael's testimony, Jacob had requested him to pick up Kimberly on the evening of September 29, 2003, take her to a motel to help resolve issues with Heather with Jacob. Shortly afterward, Michael picked up Kimberly and went to a low convenience store. Following Jacob's instructions, he then took Kimberly to a budget-inn motel. When Kimberly went to the bathroom, Jacob expressed his desire to kill her and asked Michael to help murder her and dispose of the body. "I said he was crazy. I didn't want to get involved. I wanted to leave. But he said if I didn't help, he would kill me, Michael recounted. Michael continued the story, saying that he followed Jacob's instructions and grabbed Kimberly as she came out of the bathroom, holding her down while Jacob wrapped a phone cord around her neck and used a pillow to suffocate her until Kimberly stopped breathing. The crime took place around 2 a.m. on September 30th, 2003. Michael confessed to helping Jacob move the body into the trunk of a car, leaving it there for several hours before flying it out from Cheswold, Delaware, and dumping it into the Atlantic Ocean. Police inspectors described the murder of Kimberly Holton as a horrifying event. From the method of the crime to the brutal details involved, this case not only shocked them but also shook the communities of both states. On October 24, 2003, the police announced the arrest of Michael Keyser. According to authorities, Kimberly Holton's initial disappearance might have been considered a runaway case. But Jacob did not anticipate the natural factors of the ocean. From the height of the plane, when Kimberly's body hit the water, the impact was equivalent to slamming into concrete at a speed of over 200 kilometers per hour. Jacob's ignorance and mistake led to the failure of his plan and the exposure of the truth. On January 6, 2004, Michael Keyser was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit the crime, resulting in a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Kimberly Holton's foster sister, Heather, was not charged in connection with the crime. Although Heather was involved in the issues Jacob mentioned in his confession, there was no evidence showing that she directly participated in or knew about the cruel plan. The case of throwing the girl's body from a plane into the Atlantic Ocean is one of the most shocking cases due to the perpetrator's cruelty. Due to personal disputes related to his girlfriend, Jacob, one of the masterminds, callously took the life of an innocent young girl. The incident not only shocked public opinion in the United States, but also raised fears about the cold-blooded and inhumane calculations behind this crime. Jacob, along with his accomplices, committed the heinous act without considering the terrible consequences they caused, making the case one of the most horrific and haunting stories in American history.